The first example we're going to do is where you've got to calculate the sum, and there's ways of already having A and D and N. So I'm going to treat this like I would a finance calculation where there's lots of variables. And I'm going to write down all the variables, and I'm going to write down which ones I have, and then I'm going to put a question mark by the one I don't have. And there's the question. So I need to find the sum of the first 10 terms of the series that goes like that. And I said I'm actually already given A, D, and N, but I do have to do one little quick calculation to get the D. Okay, so it's arithmetic, and that one's difference is 4, and that one difference is 4, so we know where we're going with that. Okay, so I'm going to write this down with my 4 variables. I'm going to say Sn is one of them. I'm going to say N is one of them, A, and D. Okay, D I just calculated at 4. Sn is the one I don't know. N is 10 because they asked that of me. They said find the sum of the first 10 terms. So N is the number of terms, so that's a 10 over there. And A I already have as -1. Okay, so the thing I'm trying to find is the sum. So when I now sub into this formula, I know that the thing that's still going to have a variable in it will be the Sn, and everything else is going to have a number. So I'm going to say Sn, which I don't know, is n over 2, which is 10 over 2. Then it's 2 times A, so 2 times -1, plus, and what I like to do here is instead of subbing in my 10 minus 1, is to do this part in my head. You might not like that, and you really don't have to do it, but I find it just shortcuts some nonsense that can happen later in my head. So N is 10, and I'm just going to go, what's 10 minus 1? It's 9, so I'm going to make that 9 times the difference, which is 4. Okay, and that's basically plug and play into calculator. And we come out with 170. Okay, so here's the example backwards. Here I'm finding N, but I'm being given the sum. Okay, so it's exactly the one I just did, but I'm rephrasing the question. You'll know you're finding N because they say things like how many terms. And the other way to make sure that you know what you're working out is that you're going to write it down. You're going to say, what does Sn equal? And you've got the 170. What does N equal? And that's the thing you don't know. You've got A as -1, it's given, and you, like the previous one, can have worked out that D is 4 from the series that's given to you. So now when I plug into the formula, the Sn is 170, and that is N over 2 because I don't know N. 2 of the -1 plus N minus 1, N I don't know again, and the D is 4. So when solving, it's going to be much easier if I multiply that on this side so that I end up with not having to deal with a whole bunch of fractions, which gives me 340 over here. And then I'm going to do this slow steps one at a time. I'm going to have N and then -2 plus 4N minus 4. Okay, so 340 now gives me -2N plus 4N squared, squared. So now I know I'm going to go quadratic with this particular question. So I will get out 2 answers and one of them won't work. Okay, so tidying up here, I'm going to leave my naught on the left-hand side. It just makes more sense to keep this squared thing positive. I'm going to have 4n squared minus 6n, and then minus my 340. Turning that down a bit, I can divide everything through by 2, and I can say 2n squared minus 3n minus 170, and then if you'd really like to factorize that, it'll work out quite nicely, but my rule for using the formula would always be when you don't feel confident factorizing. And in this case, with really high numbers and with a coefficient in front of the n squared, my recommendation would be to use the quadratic formula. That's all of the a, b, and c substituted into the quadratic formula. What I will say here is if you're going to use it, you need to show your substitution. Okay, otherwise it can look a little dodgy. I'm not saying people will assume you're cheating. I'm just saying let's follow the protocol and show the substitution, which is just that. You don't have to then go and show how you can do sort of basic arithmetic in your head. No one really worries about that. So what we're going to get out when we do that is we're going to get n equals 10 or n equals negative 17. And obviously it can't be negative 17 because a position in a sequence can never be negative, so you'll just strike through that. And if you don't, it's wrong. Okay, you have to strike through or it's going to be incorrect, and then it'll be that one. So therefore your answer to the question how many terms was 10 terms. You don't have to go and put a sentence answer or a word answer, but it's a good idea and a good kind of format to follow every time you do these type of questions.